Yo, what is up everybody? Today we are getting back onto this stone. So we cut it the other day, but we're gonna do a bit of a recut on it because right along this edge here, you can see that this grey body tone comes through rather than the black that we really want. And the color bar kind of peters out on this side, whereas on this side, you can see it there, it's still present right to the edge. So because it's petering out and it's that grey body tone and it gets lighter as you go out, looking at the comments, a lot of other people agreed with me, and I was saying that maybe we just take this back along this edge, probably around there, and yeah, we'll just give it a little bit of a recut because the colour in here is amazing and the grey is detracting way too much from the stone. And I had a look at all the stencils that I've got, the few sheets of them that I have, and really it's this narrow oval kind of shape that we're going to go for. But I'm not actually going to use this stencil because I think it's going to take away a bit too much. It's kind of between these two. So unfortunately with my stencils we don't have the perfect match. I want to take off a little bit more than what this one is showing, and I want to leave on a little bit more than this one. And I also don't really want it to be this skinny kind of marquise cut piece for this one. I want it to be more similar shape to what it is now. So instead, we're going to have to get the texture out. Not sponsored by Sharpie, but that would be amazing. And we're going to take off this edge here. So the plan is to take off about that much there. And probably a fair bit from the top here as well. The other side I'm not overly worried about, and I'm going to try my best not to hit the face at all, because if I hit the face, then I've got to go through a lot of stages just to get it done. And with a recut, I like to keep my time fairly minimal. Otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time recutting stones, and a recut should be easier than starting from scratch. So yeah, it's going to be more like that, maybe a little bit more off this corner over here because I can still see a lot of the grey and the colour does peter out over there. And yeah, we'll just even it out on that kind of shape there. I like this other edge, I like the bottom edge. So that's really what we're going to do. We're not going to lose a hell of a lot, but we are going to lose a bit. But I think already that stone looks much better. So let's get into it. Get the sintered burrs out to take this back. And then hopefully we just need to touch up the front a bit and just even it out, redome it. Be careful if you're going to cut around the entire stone. Remember that you've already domed over here, and we need to have a really low dome on this because look at that color bar, it's already dying. So really low domes, you have to be careful when you recut. Make sure that you try to even up the dome over here to over here once you've cut it. And also don't overdo it, otherwise you're going to have to take this edge back in. So just know your stone before you start and you'll be fine. Let's whip out the sintered diamond and get onto it. Alright, 80 grit sintered diamond burr. I just wanted to take it off real quick. Unfortunately the texture came off real quick as well. I don't know what happened there, it just came off of my finger, so that's not the best Sharpie I've ever had, so maybe the sponsorship, I'll decline that. But anyway, 80 grit sintered diamond, we're carving away. There's no real notes here. I mean, do be careful. But you'll see how much chipping this creates. You just can't avoid that chipping. You really don't want to go right to the edge of your texture line if you manage to keep yours on the stone. Don't go right over the texture line because you are going to have to get rid of all that chipping. And it's much better to do that with the final sintered diamond, which I skipped straight to in this case. So yeah, just 80 grit to really get rid of a lot of that grey haze. You are wanting to keep the stone somewhat in the shape that you want to end up with. You don't want to have to do too much shaping with the 600. It is a lot slower, but a lot safer in terms of chipping. So yeah, just keep the stone wet, keep dipping it, keep checking your lines, making sure they're all okay, and then once you get close to the end of the texture line, just switch over to the 600 grit. Don't do any of the edging with the 80 grit. It will chip way too much. You don't want to start doming with that. So 600, you can see there's a lot of chipping on that edge, especially that one big chip. That one actually had me worried a bit. But it's not too bad because I still wanted to take in a lot of that grey that's sitting there anyway. So there was still more coming in to do, and then still on top of that, you've got to do the edge. And the edge you can do a little bit with your 600. you don't really want to do it too much. You just want to take any sharpness out of the chips or the edge, just because that will harm your Nova Point. I've already damaged a Nova Point doing that, and it doesn't feel great. The sintered diamonds don't get damaged by those kind of edges, but the Nova Point will. And yeah, you just want to keep going away. You can see there I'm going pretty hard. There's a lot coming off. A lot of material comes off with the 600. It's definitely no joke, but it isn't as damaging as the 80 grit. So take it easy, but yeah, I still had a lot to come in, so probably could have kept going with the 80 grit a little bit more, but 600 was safer, and I feel like being safe most of the time when it comes to Opal with colour in it. And yeah, we're just taking it in. I'm not really focusing on the back yet. The back will be something that I do just before I set it, after I learn how to set it. So don't worry about that. This is just focusing on the sides and the face. And we just want the sides nice and straight, a nice straight edge, and a little bit of a dome, but next to nothing on this stone. The color bar is way too thin. So the 280 grit Nova. This is when you're doing your final shaping pretty much. 600 will take off a little bit, but not a lot. Don't rely on it. Definitely get your shaping done with the 280. And also we'll start doing the dome and at least get the shape of it right. Get rid of all of those little chips you can see every time the light flashes over. Just there's heaps of chips. But you're not worried about it too much. When I'm getting rid of the chips on the edge, you'll notice that I'm using like the end of the Nova Point closest to the flex shaft. And that's just because if it does kind of gouge anything out of my burr, I want it to be on that kind of section, not in the meat of the burr, because it takes a long time to get a cut out of your Nova Points. You have to wear it all the way back, kind of like an Opal. So you have to do a lot of use to get rid of it, and it can cause inconsistencies in your point. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Always use that last little bit before it gets to your flex shaft. And then there's not much to see or say about this stuff. It's kind of, yeah, just progressing through all the grits. You'll notice the 600, I'm still working on the edges. That's because I'm still doing a little bit of final shaping, working on that little dome as well. So 600, you've got to be careful. I am still avoiding the face, you can see. I'm still working on the edges and the sides, but not on the face of the stone, because we just don't want to take away any of that at this point. Now with the 1200, I'm getting the sides, getting the edges, less so the sides. You don't need to polish the sides, so you can stop already with the sides. But now I am going to start hitting the face and bringing it all down to a 1200 grit, which is just good because then you won't miss any patches. But it will take a while to get those edges right with the 1200, so I spend quite a bit of time on this set. And yeah, just a little bit on the edges, just because I like to make sure that it is pretty nice standalone stone, but because it is going to get bezel set, I'm not overly worried about it. I just do it because I can, and I don't really think about it too much, so I'm just trying to hit as much of the stone as possible. Definitely not the back. And then we switch over to the 3000. Now the 3000 is exactly the same as the 1200. Anywhere you've hit with the 1200, you're gonna have to hit with the 3000. Otherwise, you can't just switch to the polish and start going at it and getting a nice even shine across the whole thing. Unless you spend a lot of time on it. You can do that if you want. The 3000 can be skipped every now and then, but I find it's much better and quicker results if you do the 3000 step and then go cerium oxide, which is what we do in this case. I'm focusing on the edges because I know they need a lot of work, but the face as well needs to be hit. So just hit the whole stone. You're not going to remove too much, so you don't have to be too scared. And then finally, my favorite stage of every Opal cut, the cerium oxide. So I'm using the Blacklighters cerium oxide. It's still the best polishing powder I have tried. My recent testing did reveal it was cerium oxide, but it is still by far better than any of the cerium oxides, aluminium oxides, or diamond pastes that I've used in the past. So it is good stuff. And yeah, we just hit the entire face of it. get those edges, get the whole thing nice and shiny, and we're all done. Okay, stone is finished up, all polished, all trimmed back. I'm loving the shape. I reckon that will work really well for a ring. If I wear it as a pinky ring, it'll work okay. Now, in terms of the dome, it is really low, like a low to no dome. It's going to be enough to bezel over, but that is about it because we are getting thin on color bar. Really thin. Like even on the thick side, this is the thick side, you can see the edge of it just up there. So you can see that there is a color bar sitting on top, but we're really running low. Actually, that side there's become a bit thicker. Oh, no, that is the side. I'm getting this stone all mixed up. Anyway, you can see it's the area we've got left is much more black than all the grey that was up over here. So all that grey is just about gone, except for right on the edge. I pulled up just short because the colour was still fairly strong towards that edge. And also because the bezel is going to end up covering over that a little bit anyway. There's nothing we can do about the grey body tone throughout the middle here. So I could have cut it straight down the guts and ended up with two really small black stones, but I much prefer this. And it's quite a usable stone, so I'm happy with it. I realised afterwards that I was kicking myself because it was a recut. I kind of took it a bit easy and I skipped a really important step, and I'm just kicking myself ever since. You won't be able to see it on camera unless I can get the light to really, really perfectly show it. Nah, I can't get it. But trust me when I say under a 30 times loop, there's actually a tiny little, it's not a chip, but it's a little pore up over here. And it's really annoying me. So I'm going to have to rub that back a little bit in that corner and repolish that area. But that would not have happened if I'd stuck to my normal process of between every grit, just getting a towel, drying the surface and having a look at it. Even if it's just a quick scan under the light like this, if I had done that, I still would have picked it up. I'm absolutely certain I would have picked it up. I never miss those things, but I cut corners on this one, literally, by cutting that corner off. But I also cut corners between the stages, and I'm paying the price because I'm going to have to go back and get rid of that tiny little pore that could have been the result of one of the chips caused by the sintered diamond, of which there were many, but they were on the edge, so it's alright. We had to take that edge off anyway, so all good. And yeah, nice little, there is a bit more of a pinfire in it now, so it's gone back a little bit to that kind of stage, but a couple of my favourite jigsaw pieces are still in there, and there's a little bit of a scatter of a couple different patterns in there, which is really nice. And yeah, much better without the grey, I think. Bit smaller, but not a lot. I think all in all, it's a bit of an upgrade, so quite happy with it, except for the fact that I missed that tiny little spot, which I will finish up here and just get rid of that off camera. I thought I'd mention it because it's a good lesson learned. You skip a step and you pay the penalty every time. We will get back to working on stones properly and not miss those little steps. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of backtracking and we can't have that. So that's it for today, and I will see you in the next one.